There's this thought that often circles in my mind, and perhaps it's a familiar visitor in yours too. Why is it so incredibly challenging to consistently do the things I know, deep down, are genuinely good for me? It's a common human paradox. We construct these ideal versions of ourselves in our minds, healthier, more focused, more patient, more productive, kinder. But then, as the days unfold, we find ourselves almost magnetically drawn towards choices that steer us away from that envisioned path, landing us somewhere we didn't consciously intend to be. It's certainly not a deficit in intelligence. We are acutely aware that succumbing to the allure of the snooze button for the 5th, 6th, maybe even 7th time isn't laying the groundwork for a productive morning. We know with a certainty that borders on frustration that another hour lost in the endless scroll of social media, instead of dedicating that time to the project that matters or the skill we want to develop, isn't aligned with our deeper aspirations. Choosing the convenience of greasy, unsatisfying takeout over the nourishment of a home-cooked meal, we understand these aren't the choices that build the life we say we want. Yet, these are the patterns we often repeat. We make these seemingly small, daily wrong turns, these micro-deviations, and over time, they compound, shaping the reality of our lives in ways that can feel disheartening. The immediate, almost reflexive response is often self-recrimination. We berate ourselves, internalizing the struggle as a personal failing. I just don't possess enough discipline, or my willpower is fundamentally weak, or I'm just not cut out for this. But what if this narrative of personal inadequacy is an oversimplification? What if the reason we grapple with this internal tug-of-war isn't merely a straightforward lack of self-control, but rather a far deeper, more intricate, and ultimately more fascinating dynamic operating constantly within the complex machinery of our own minds? That, in essence, is the profound territory we're venturing into today, drawing immense inspiration from a truly paradigm-shifting book, The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. Now, Jonathan Haidt isn't just another author in the self-help aisle. He is a distinguished social psychologist, a thinker of considerable depth, who possesses a remarkable ability to weave together the threads of ancient wisdom from diverse cultures with the cutting-edge insights of modern neuroscience. He puts forth a compelling proposition: the fundamental reason we so often struggle, the reason our willpower can feel as ephemeral as mist on a cool morning, is because we haven't truly grasped, let alone learned to navigate, the two powerful and often conflicting systems perpetually at work within us. He introduces these as the emotional, instinctual, and immensely powerful elephant, and the rational, analytical, and comparatively weaker rider. This book is nothing short of a treasure trove. It delves into psychology, philosophy, sociology, even religious and spiritual traditions from around the world. And then, crucially, it grounds these age-old ideas in the solid bedrock of contemporary scientific research. Esteemed thinkers like Martin Seligman, often hailed as the father of positive psychology, and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the brilliant mind who gifted us the transformative concept of flow, have lauded its insights. The happiness hypothesis isn't merely a guide to fleeting happiness. It's a profound exploration into the very architecture of our minds, offering a roadmap to understanding ourselves more deeply and, consequently, to guiding ourselves towards a life imbued with greater meaning, purpose, and authentic fulfillment. So, let's embark on this journey to explore the rich metaphor of the elephant and the rider and discover how a clearer understanding of this internal dynamic and, quite literally, change everything about how we experience our lives. The Buddha, more than 2.5 millennia ago, employed a strikingly potent image to describe the human mind. He articulated, Formerly, this mind went wandering where it liked, as it wished, as it pleased. Today, I shall control it carefully, as the elephant handler controls a rutting elephant with a hook. From these ancient beginnings, the human mind, our complex psyche, was likened to this untamed, immensely powerful elephant, a creature driven by primal desires, raw emotions, and deeply ingrained instincts. But, and this is the pivotal part of the metaphor, there is also the rider, the one who holds the reins, representing our conscious awareness, our faculty of reason, our analytical mind. The core idea, both ancient and modern, is that even when this colossal elephant of our emotions is surging with anger, stubbornly fixated on a particular desire, or paralyzed by fear, we, the rider, possess the potential to exert some measure of guidance and control. Jonathan Haidt masterfully takes this ancient metaphor and makes it the central pillar of his work, demonstrating its enduring relevance. For a significant portion of Western intellectual history, there's been a strong emphasis on human beings as predominantly rational creatures. We've prided ourselves on our capacity for logic, our ability to set clear goals, and then systematically, through reason, achieve them. But if we're truly honest with ourselves, how frequently does that idealized process unfold with such seamless precision in the messy reality of our daily lives? I, for one, can meticulously set my alarm for 6 a.m., armed with the noblest intentions of dedicating those quiet morning hours to writing or deep work. Yet, when that alarm pierces the silence, the elephant, representing my profound desire for the comfort and oblivion of more sleep, often unceremoniously stomps all over my rider's carefully constructed and well-intentioned plans. The rider knows what should be done, but the elephant feels what it wants. Haidt compellingly argues that our raw, untamed emotions, our innate greed, our deeply rooted fears, our insatiable craving for comfort and ease, our potent and often unexamined likes and dislikes usually hold sway, overpowering our more delicate, rational thought processes. The rider, Haidt suggests, can only truly and effectively guide the elephant if the elephant itself doesn't harbor a strong opposing desire. If that massive, willful elephant is determined to charge in a particular direction, the rider, armed only with logic and reason, will find it an almost impossible task to steer it elsewhere. It becomes like trying to redirect a charging bull with a feather. Therefore, if we attempt to impose discipline through sheer force of will, without first understanding and then learning to work in concert with our inner elephant, we are, in essence, setting ourselves up for a perpetually frustrating and often futile battle. True, sustainable alignment, the kind of inner peace and effective action we seek, emerges not from the rider conquering the elephant, but from the mind and heart, the rider and the elephant, learning to operate in a harmonious partnership. Because, as a wealth of modern neuroscience and psychological research now clearly demonstrates, our reasoning faculties are most potent, most insightful, and most effective when they are informed, energized, and supported by our emotions, not when they are in constant opposition to them. Our internal world, far from being a unified and coherent entity, is often a complex landscape, feeling more like a kingdom with divided loyalties and competing factions. Firstly, there's the persistent mind-body split. Have you ever experienced a gut feeling, an intuitive knowing that seemed to contradict all available logic, yet later proved to be uncannily accurate? Or perhaps you felt your heart pound in your chest with anxiety, your palms sweat, even when your conscious mind was busy telling you that everything was perfectly fine and there was nothing to worry about. The brilliant French philosopher and mathematician Blaise Pascal astutely observed centuries ago, The heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of. Our physical bodies often possess their own distinct wisdom, their own repertoire of reactions and responses that our conscious, thinking mind cannot fully comprehend or control. Stress manifests physically. Joy can feel like a warmth spreading through us. The body speaks its own language. Then we encounter the dynamic interplay and sometimes conflict between our left brain and our right brain. It's a common heuristic to think of the left hemisphere as the rider, more analytical, verbal, logical, detail-oriented. The right hemisphere in this model is more akin to the elephant, more intuitive, emotional, holistic, attuned to the bigger picture and non-verbal cues. What's fascinating is how sometimes the left brain, our internal narrator and interpreter, becomes exceptionally skilled at concocting plausible, even eloquent justifications for what the right brain, or the elephant, already instinctively wants to do or believe. It can spin a very convincing story, even if the underlying motivations are purely emotional or based on flimsy evidence. And perhaps most crucially for our daily struggles, there's the fundamental split between our controlled, conscious system, the rider, and our automatic, intuitive, and largely unconscious system. The elephant is the domain of our immediate gut reactions, our deeply ingrained habits, both good and bad, and our instantaneous emotional responses. It is incredibly powerful, astoundingly fast in its processing, and often relentlessly driven by the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. This is where that seductive dopamine hit comes into play, the little jolt of reward we get from endlessly scrolling through social media feeds, indulging in sugary or high-fat treats, or binge-watching that addictive new series. These activities feel good, often intensely so in the immediate moment, but they frequently leave us with a lingering aftertaste of emptiness, regret, or a feeling of time squandered when the initial rush subsides. It's at this juncture, often after the elephant has had its fill, that the rider, our conscious, deliberative thinking, typically steps onto the stage. The rider is all about long-term planning, careful analysis of consequences, thoughtful consideration of options, and aligning actions with overarching goals. But here's the crucial and often humbling kicker that Haidt emphasizes. The rider functions more like an advisor, a consultant, or perhaps a charioteer to the mighty elephant, rather than its absolute dictatorial master. We, as riders, can suggest preferred routes, we can attempt to guide, we can try to persuade with logic and foresight, but we cannot always, or even often, dictate the elephant's path through sheer force of will, especially when the elephant's desires are strong. We are not absolute monarchs of our inner realm. We are more akin to presidential advisors or skilled mahouts, constantly negotiating, trying to understand, and gently but persistently nudging the powerful emotional elephant in the direction that serves our long-term well-being. So, the pivotal question becomes, how do we transform ourselves into more effective advisors, more skilled and compassionate mahouts for our inner elephants? How do we begin to truly understand this magnificent, powerful, yet sometimes unruly creature that resides within each of us? Jonathan Haidt suggests that we can gain crucial insights by metaphorically opening 7 distinct doors into the elephant's world. Door number 1. The elephant acts on a liking meter. Picture a curious monkey encountering a new, unfamiliar fruit. If the fruit is sweet and delicious, the monkey's internal liking meter instantly shoots up, a clear signal. Yummy! More of this, please! Conversely, if the fruit is bitter or unpleasant, that same meter plummets just as rapidly, an equally clear signal. Nope, avoid this at all costs. Our inner elephant, Haidt explains, operates on a remarkably similar, often entirely subconscious, liking meter. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as affective priming. When our elephant encounters words, images, or concepts like hope, joy, connection, or fun, it processes them with incredible speed and generates a positive feeling, a subtle internal yes. When it encounters stimuli associated with death, loss, failure, or boredom, it reacts negatively, almost instantaneously, with an internal no. The rider, our conscious mind, might observe this and think, well, that seems rather obvious. Everyone has preferences, things they like and dislike. But Haidt urges us to delve deeper. Consider the truly significant life questions. What kind of work will bring me fulfillment? Where should I choose to live to thrive? Who should I partner with for a meaningful life? How, fundamentally, do I want to live this one precious life I have? When faced with these monumental decisions, can the rider truly afford to just abdicate responsibility and let the elephant's immediate, gut-level like or dislike dictate the entire course of action? Probably not, if wisdom is to prevail. The profound challenge for us as 21st century riders and elephants is that we are navigating an unprecedentedly vast and often overwhelming ocean of information, stimuli, and choices. It's increasingly difficult to discern what we truly need amidst the cacophony of what we merely want or are told we should want. In this environment, the elephant's primitive like or dislike mechanism often becomes the primary default filter for processing the world. If the rider isn't vigilantly paying attention, isn't consciously engaging in critical thought and self-awareness, we can easily become lost in a carefully curated but ultimately superficial illusion created by the elephant. A world surrounded only by things it likes, gradually eroding our rational footing and our connection to deeper values. As the Stoic Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius so wisely observed, our life is what our thoughts make it. Yet, our thoughts, particularly our initial impressions, are often the rapid-fire, unanalyzed judgments of the elephant. So, exercise caution and cultivate awareness when your elephant internally screams, "Only buy this specific brand," or "Only consume this particular type of content," or "Only associate with these kinds of people." Take a deliberate pause, step back, and thoughtfully examine the landscape of your likes and dislikes. Is this a genuinely resonant preference, aligned with your authentic self and your considered values? Or is it perhaps an illusion, a conditioned response, or a fleeting whim of the elephant? Take a deliberate pause, step back, and thoughtfully examine the landscape of your likes and dislikes. Is this a genuinely resonant preference, aligned with your authentic self and your considered values? Or is it perhaps an illusion, a conditioned response, or a fleeting whim of the elephant? Door number 2. The power negativity bias. In the vast theater of the animal kingdom, and indeed for our own inner elephant, bad is demonstrably stronger than good. This isn't a flaw, it's a deeply ingrained evolutionary design feature. Those ancient ancestors, both animal and human, who reacted more swiftly and intensely to potential threats, a rustle in the undergrowth, a shadow in the periphery, than they did to potential opportunities, a patch of ripe berries, a pleasant scent, were significantly more likely to survive, to avoid predation, and to pass on their genes. We are the inheritors of this safety-first wiring. As a result, we tend to pay more sustained attention to negative news. We dwell longer and more intensely on criticism or perceived slights, and we react more profoundly and for a more extended duration to bad experiences than we do to equally impactful good ones. A piece of genuinely good news might provide the elephant with a fleeting surge of joy or relief, but an encounter with bad news, a setback, or a harsh word can trigger a cascade of lingering fear, anxiety, or resentment that can color our experience for hours, days, or even longer. This negativity bias, while once crucial for survival in a perilous world, can be a dangerous trap in modern life. If the elephant becomes excessively fixated on negative information or experiences, ruminating on them without the rider providing comfort, perspective, or a balanced viewpoint, we can easily spiral into a state of unusual and disproportionate distress. The astute Benjamin Franklin captured this asymmetry perfectly. We can feel a slight pain, but when we are healthy, we feel nothing at all. Good things are often taken for granted, while bad things seize our attention. Door number 3, the insidious trap of self-righteousness. In this internal scenario, the elephant confidently declares, "What I see, what I feel, is the absolute truth. Everyone else not only should, but must see it precisely my way." And, more often than not, the rider, instead of questioning this assertion, readily chimes in with agreement. "Exactly. I only believe what my own eyes tell me, what my own experience confirms." The elephant might muse, "I find celebrity gossip rather entertaining." And the rider, seeking to rationalize, might respond, "Well, a little bit of harmless gossip now and then certainly doesn't hurt anyone, does it? It's just a bit of light relief." The elephant then asserts with conviction, "I am perfectly capable of judging others and myself with complete objectivity." The rider, ever the agreeable consultant when the elephant is insistent, nods sagely, "Of course, I can be objective as long as I choose to be." Do you begin to perceive a recurring pattern here? This is the subtle yet pervasive voice of self-righteousness, an exceedingly common human trait. Many of us, to varying degrees, operate under the influence of what social psychologists term naive realism, the deeply held, often unexamined, conviction that we perceive the world objectively, exactly as it truly is, and therefore, anyone who sees things differently must be biased, misinformed, irrational, or even ill-intentioned. We might genuinely believe ourselves to be impartial observers, but this very conviction, ironically, is a well-documented form of self-serving bias. Door number 2. We might also inadvertently slip into a sense of moral superiority, where reading about the failings or missteps of others provides a subtle boost to our own ethical self-image, making us feel comparatively virtuous. It is, as the ancient wisdom in the Gospel of Matthew so vividly describes, remarkably easy to spot the tiny splinter in someone else's eye while remaining blissfully unaware of the massive plank obstructing our own vision. The pioneering psychologist David Dunning, co-discoverer of the Dunning-Kruger effect, conducted research demonstrating that people consistently and significantly overestimate their own good deeds, positive qualities, and contributions, while simultaneously judging the actions and motives of others with a far more critical and objective lens. When we evaluate others, we tend to focus on their observable behaviors. When we evaluate ourselves, however, we often shift the focus to our presumably good intentions, especially if our actions were less than stellar. We unconsciously and preferentially associate ourselves with positive traits and then actively seek out or selectively interpret evidence that confirms just how intelligent, kind, or competent we are, leading to a comfortable state of self-satisfaction, which, if unchecked, can veer into narcissism. And what happens when we inevitably make a mistake or fall short? Our inner rider often transforms into an expert defense attorney, tirelessly finding every conceivable reason, excuse, or mitigating circumstance to construct the strongest possible defense for our actions. This powerful, instinctual drive for self-justification can severely complicate our ability to learn from mistakes, to empathize with others, and to cooperate effectively. Because if we are always convinced that we're fundamentally better, more correct, or more deserving, genuine collaboration becomes exceedingly difficult. The writer needs to consciously step back and ask a crucial question. Beyond being right, what kind of person do I truly aspire to be? Both the elephant and the rider need a constant reminder of three foundational principles: that all individuals are, at a fundamental level, deserving of equal respect; that my personal perception of the world, however vivid and convincing, is still just my perception, not the absolute, unvarnished truth; and that I must cultivate an ongoing openness to understanding myself more deeply, flaws and all. Door number 4, the primal instinct of reciprocity. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. When someone extends kindness towards us, offers help, or provides a benefit, a powerful and generally positive instinct arises within us: the desire to reciprocate, to repay that kindness, to return the favor. This is a beautiful and essential human instinct, the very glue that helps bind societies together. However, there is a darker, shadow side to this same deeply ingrained instinct, which also fuels the desire for retribution. You wronged me, so I must wrong you back. An eye for an eye can quickly escalate. Our inner elephant possesses a potent suite of moral emotions, and among the strongest are those related to fairness, justice, and vengeance. This is why, when watching movies or reading stories, we instinctively root for the good guys to triumph and for the bad guys to receive their just deserts. Psychologically, the roots of reciprocity can be traced, in part, to our innate human tendency to mimic those around us, especially those we like or admire. When we feel close to someone, we often unconsciously begin to mirror their speech patterns, their posture, their gestures, even, to some extent, their way of thinking and their emotional states. And, intriguingly, we also tend to develop a greater liking for people who subtly mimic us. This unconscious mimicry serves as a powerful social signal, a nonverbal communication that says, we are similar, we are part of the same tribe. This herd instinct, this need for belonging and mutual support, is deeply etched into our evolutionary genes. Understanding this powerful instinct of reciprocity allows us to navigate our social relationships with greater wisdom and intentionality. We must exercise vigilance to ensure that feelings of resentment, perceived slights, or our own biases don't lead us into destructive cycles of retaliatory action. Conversely, we can also harness the positive power of reciprocity to build and strengthen connections. In friendships, romantic partnerships, and even professional collaborations, maintaining a sense of balance in give and take is often key. Consistently giving too much without reciprocation can lead to resentment, while consistently taking too much can breed distrust. Both extremes, especially early in a relationship, can inadvertently sabotage its potential. Thoughtful, appropriate gifts, genuine acts of mutual support, and expressions of gratitude can significantly enhance the quality and longevity of our bonds. And the timeless wisdom of Confucius, articulated thousands of years ago, remains an invaluable guiding star for all human interaction. Do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. This simple principle is the bedrock of ethical reciprocity. Door number 5, the dual pull of greed and conspicuous consumption. Let's revisit the elephant's internal liking meter. This internal gauge is constantly, and often unconsciously, tagging experiences, objects, and people with labels like good feeling, approach, or dislike, yuck, avoid. It then diligently reports these affective assessments to the rider. The rider, often eager to maintain a sense of well-being or to appease the sometimes demanding elephant, is frequently all too happy to identify and procure something that the elephant likes, thereby satisfying its immediate craving. This cycle, elephant desires, rider facilitates, elephant experiences fleeting satisfaction, repeats itself so frequently throughout our days that the rider can develop a deeply ingrained habit, almost a default mode of operation. Whatever the elephant seems to want, the rider's primary job is to try and provide it. And if for some reason the rider is unable to satisfy the elephant's desires, the rider itself can begin to feel frustrated, agitated, or inadequate. Both extremes, especially early in a relationship, can inadvertently sabotage its potential. Thoughtful, appropriate gifts, genuine acts of mutual support, and expressions of gratitude can significantly enhance the quality and longevity of our bonds. And the timeless wisdom of Confucius, articulated thousands of years ago, remains an invaluable guiding star for all human interaction. Do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. This simple principle is the bedrock of ethical reciprocity. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, wandering through the bustling marketplace of Athens, is said to have remarked with profound simplicity, "How many things I can do without." This insight stands in stark contrast to the modern ailment of an obsession with material possessions, an attachment that can easily transform the rider from a guiding consciousness into a veritable prisoner of the elephant's endless wants. The crucial distinction we often fail to make, a distinction the rider must learn to emphasize, isn't merely like versus dislike, but the more fundamental and discerning question of genuinely need versus merely want or don't need. From this inherent, almost boundless greed of the elephant, both the rider and the elephant can easily become ensnared in the phenomenon of conspicuous consumption, the practice of acquiring and displaying goods and services primarily for the purpose of signaling status, wealth, or social standing to others, rather than for their intrinsic utility or personal enjoyment. The perceived value of such items often derives not from their objective qualities or craftsmanship, but almost entirely from how they are perceived and valued by those in one's social sphere. If the rider, during its formative years, grew up in an environment where material wealth and superficial markers of intelligence or success were excessively praised, while poverty or a lack of formal education were subtly or overtly looked down upon, it becomes exceedingly difficult to internalize these societal pressures. The elephant, in such a context, becomes habituated to this status spending, seeking external validation and a temporary boost to its perceived reputation. But herein lies a poignant irony. Striving to appear a certain way and actually being that way are two profoundly different and often mutually exclusive undertakings. Conspicuous consumption frequently serves only to make the rider live for external appearances, for the fleeting approval of others, rather than for the cultivation of genuine self-worth and authentic self-development. It can, as many have discovered, turn us into unwitting slaves of an ever-escalating consumerist cycle, perpetually chasing the next acquisition. The ultimate point isn't to advocate for asceticism or to completely shun material comforts, but rather to cultivate a profound mindfulness regarding why we are spending. The goal is to spend in alignment with genuine needs and values for the inherent quality or utility of an item or experience, not primarily to impress others or to project a carefully curated but ultimately hollow image. Door number 6. The delicate dance of self-esteem. The elephant's sense of self, its pride, can be incredibly touchy, almost exquisitely fragile at times. It can be fiercely, even aggressively protective of its self-esteem. When it perceives a threat to its ego, however slight, it might lash out impulsively, seemingly unconcerned about whether its reactions cause harm or offense to others, its sole focus being the immediate defense of its wounded pride. This kind of reactive defensiveness is often a hallmark of overly high, yet brittle and insecure self-esteem. Conversely, a pattern of chronically low self-esteem can lead to a pervasive lack of confidence and a debilitating tendency towards self-criticism. This kind of elephant is prone to internalizing blame, constantly finding fault in itself, even when external factors are clearly at play. It engages in harsh, relentless self-critique. When faced with challenges or setbacks, its first instinct is often not to strategize and overcome, but rather to retreat, to withdraw from the perceived threat, or to simply freeze, paralyzed by self-doubt and fear of failure. The book offers a practical and healthy pathway to building a more robust and resilient sense of self-esteem. Actively engage in learning and mastering a skill, something that you have a genuine capacity for, and that, upon achieving a degree of competence, genuinely makes you feel a sense of pride, accomplishment, and self-efficacy. True self-esteem is often built on a foundation of competence, not just on affirmations. Door number 7. The intriguing paradox of choice. As I mentioned at the very outset, the experience of Hang Fook is intricably linked with the ability to make choices. Our sense of autonomy and agency is crucial. However, herein lies a fascinating and often counterintuitive paradox. An overabundance of choices, far from liberating us, frequently has the opposite effect, making us less happy, more anxious, and less satisfied with the choices we ultimately make. Many people operate under the assumption, if only I had more money, more power, more influence, then I would have a wider array of options, and therefore more control, and consequently more happiness. We are constantly bombarded with advice that reinforces this idea. You must strive to get into this highly prestigious and competitive field because it will open up so many more career choices for you down the line. Or, you absolutely need to work at a top-tier company because that's where you'll have the best opportunities to find a high-quality partner in the future. We overestimate, often dramatically, the intrinsic value of simply accumulating an ever-expanding portfolio of options. Happiness is indeed a choice, but it is also, crucially, an ability. The ability to choose wisely, to choose appropriately, and, perhaps most importantly, to commit to our choices and find satisfaction within them. Having more options is not invariably better. The individual who is chronically indecisive will likely remain indecisive, perhaps even more so when faced with an even greater number of alternatives. The person who compulsively tries to weigh every single potential benefit and drawback of every conceivable option will likely find themselves trapped in an endless loop of analysis paralysis, struggling to ever feel confident that they've made the perfect choice. What is truly crucial on the elephant's journey through life isn't necessarily how many different forks in the road it encounters, but rather its capacity to move forward with purpose and conviction once a path is chosen. The primary focus, therefore, shouldn't be on the dizzying myriad of potential choices that might be available, but rather on the empowering act of choosing, of committing, and of then investing oneself in making that chosen path work. So, we've metaphorically peeked through these 7 enlightening doors and, hopefully, gained a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of our inner elephant, its motivations, its biases, its strengths, and its vulnerabilities. Now we arrive at the eminently practical and pressing question: how do we evolve into more effective, wiser, and more compassionate riders? How do we learn to honor and integrate our powerful instincts without becoming blindly subservient to them? How can we guide ourselves with both heart and mind working in concert towards a state of genuine, sustainable happiness and well-being? The book illuminates two crucial, interconnected steps on this transformative journey. Step 1. Cultivate a cooperative partnership with your elephant. The absolute foundational first step is to deeply recognize internalize the nature of the rider-elephant relationship. This means moving beyond a purely intellectual understanding to a felt sense of this internal dynamic. We must acknowledge with both honesty and self-compassion that neither you, the conscious rider, nor your instinctual elephant is inherently perfect. Both possess unique strengths, and both, inevitably, have weaknesses and blind spots. The path forward involves courageously and gently accepting these imperfections, not as flaws to be eradicated, but as integral parts of your whole, complex, and multifaceted self. This profound self-acceptance means being willing to look directly at and lovingly embrace the totality of who you are, the good, the bad, and the in-between. Haidt powerfully emphasizes that we are not just the rider nor just the elephant. We are a dynamic and inseparable combination of both. Attempting to control or dominate the immensely powerful elephant solely through the rider's often limited willpower is, in most cases, a recipe for frustration and eventual failure. Our overall psychological health, our sense of vitality, and the quality of our lives depend profoundly on the quality of cooperation and mutual respect within this internal partnership. When facing the familiar struggle of your own weak will or succumbing to unhelpful habits, you can draw wisdom from ancient practices such as the Buddha's strategic approach. Consciously steer clear of overwhelming temptations or situations that consistently trigger unwanted behaviors. Proactively design your environment to make desired behaviors easier and undesired behaviors harder or less appealing. If you're earnestly trying to lose weight, for instance, don't engage in a prolonged, wistful contemplation of the dessert buffet. Instead, you might consciously choose to focus on how bloated, sluggish, and uncomfortable overeating typically makes you feel afterwards. By deliberately associating negative feelings or consequences with unwanted behaviors and positive feelings with desired ones, you can gradually begin to reshape the elephant's deeply ingrained desires and learn to guide it more effectively and compassionately. It's vital to remember that the elephant possesses an immense reservoir of raw strength, primal energy, and powerful motivation. The only sustainable way to channel this formidable power constructively in alignment with your deepest values is for the rider to commit to an ongoing, lifelong practice of honest self-reflection and courageous self-examination. So, what specific areas should your rider diligently review? Your automatic, habitual thoughts and behaviors. Pay close attention to your default patterns. When you arrive home from a demanding day at work, do you automatically collapse onto the couch and lose yourself for hours in the passive consumption of your phone's content? Before settling down for bed, do you routinely find yourself gaming or binge-watching shows until the late hours, sacrificing precious sleep? Your underlying, often unexamined irrational beliefs and cognitive distortions. Become a curious detective of your own mind. Notice common tendencies towards exaggeration or catastrophizing. This minor setback is an absolute disaster. Overgeneralization. I always mess up in these situations. Personalization. This negative outcome is entirely my fault. And rigid black and white thinking. If I'm not perfect, I'm a total failure. Consciously set action-oriented goals rather than vague outcome-oriented goals. Instead of a nebulous aspiration like, I want to be less stressed, an outcome, formulate a concrete, actionable goal such as, I will practice 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation every morning before checking my email. Step 2. Understand the happiness equation. The field of positive psychology, pioneered by thinkers like Martin Seligman, offers a remarkably simple yet profoundly insightful equation for understanding the components of sustainable happiness. H equals S plus C plus V. Let's break this down. H represents your enduring, stable level of happiness. This isn't about fleeting pleasures, but a more consistent sense of well-being. S stands for your biological set point, your genetically influenced predisposition for happiness. Some individuals, due to their innate temperament, naturally tend to experience more positive emotions. This set point is relatively stable, but not entirely immutable. C is for the conditions of your life. These are the relatively stable, objective circumstances, such as your income level, marital status, age, health, and the place where you live. While some conditions matter, we tend to adapt to many of them over time. V represents voluntary activities. These are the conscious choices you make, the things you actively choose to do with your time and energy. This is where your agency as a rider is most potent. To cultivate lasting happiness, you ideally need a favorable combination of these three factors. However, S, your genetic set point, is largely determined by your biology, and C, many of your life conditions, are often difficult to change significantly or are things you eventually adapt to. The only factor over which you have substantial, direct, and ongoing control is V, your voluntary activities. This insight powerfully echoes the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Focus your energy on changing the things that are within your control and cultivate acceptance for the things that are not. Haidt offers invaluable practical advice for how we can strategically adjust external factors, which fall under C but also heavily influence our V choices, to enhance our overall happiness. Noise. Chronic, unpredictable, and uncontrollable noise is a significant source of distress, and research shows that we never fully adapt to it. If at all possible, strive to live and work in an environment that is relatively quiet and peaceful. Commute and work. Long, stressful commutes are a major drain on happiness. Similarly, a highly demanding job that leaves little time or energy for other aspects of life can be detrimental. Consider if earning somewhat less money but gaining more time, autonomy, and reduced stress might actually lead to a net increase in well-being. Be mindful of the insidious trap of excessive material accumulation. Often, less truly is more. Growth, connection, and family. Actively engage in learning new things, exploring new hobbies, and trying novel experiences. These activities foster a sense of competence and vitality. Crucially, invest deeply in your relationships. Spend more quality, undistracted time with family and close friends. Ensure you are getting adequate rest and rejuvenation. Participate regularly in activities that benefit both your physical body and your mental and emotional soul. Flow and meditation. Regularly practice mindfulness meditation or other contemplative practices. These can help regulate emotions, increase self-awareness, and reduce stress. Actively seek out flow experiences, those moments of complete absorption in a challenging yet enjoyable activity where your sense of self and the passage of time seem to temporarily disappear. Relationships, this is paramount. Human connection is not just a nice to have, it is a fundamental human need, absolutely vital for our happiness and well-being. If you find yourself in a situation with a consistently difficult or draining colleague, a toxic or unsupportive friend, or, most significantly, living with an incompatible or conflict-ridden romantic partner over an extended period, achieving genuine happiness becomes an incredibly arduous, if not impossible task. This is because we generally do not adapt well to chronic interpersonal conflict. It continually erodes our sense of safety and well-being. Therefore, nurture your significant relationships with care, intention, and effort. Your romantic partnership, your bonds with family, your close friendships. These connections are what make life truly rich, meaningful, and resilient. Don't allow past hurts or fear of vulnerability to cause you to retreat into a protective but ultimately isolating shell. And if you find yourself grappling with significant mental or emotional struggles, actively seek out effective methods for psychological recovery and resilience. Practices like journaling your thoughts and feelings, engaging in regular self-reflection to distill lessons learned from challenging experiences, and seeking to understand the deeper why behind recurring patterns or events in your life. This kind of introspective work can help you uncover meaning even in adversity and navigate life's inevitable difficulties with greater wisdom, clarity, and strength. The magnificent, powerful elephant that resides within you is an incredible, often untapped resource. It is the wellspring of your intuition, your passion, your creativity, and your deep-seated, embodied potential. As its rider, your role is not to be an overly harsh, critical, or domineering taskmaster, constantly trying to break its spirit or suppress its vital energy. Rather, the ultimate goal is to become its trusted friend, its compassionate ally, its skilled and respected guide. Imagine reaching a point where you can genuinely and lovingly say to your own inner elephant, "Hey there, I truly see you. I understand your needs, your fears, your desires. Now, let's have a collaborative discussion about where we, as a united team, want to go together." My deepest hope, both for you who are listening and for myself on this ongoing journey, is that as riders, continually faced with the alluring temptations of the world, the powerful pull of our desires, and the undeniable reality of our own human frailties and imperfections, we can progressively learn to accept, to embrace, and ultimately to harmonize with that magnificent, wild, and wonderful elephant within, so that, step by patient step, we can move forward through life not as a house divided against itself, but as a more unified, clear-sighted, and integrated being, journeying with purpose and grace towards the genuine, sustainable happiness that is always there, patiently waiting for us to claim it.